It's ridiculous to me that you lied on Monday, and yet here we still are. That's one of your lies. You've been intrusive into people's personal lives. You're confused. I'm not on trial, no matter how hard you try to put me on trial. No. This is the truth, Judge. And it is a lie. It is a lie.
So what does the court of public opinion think about all of this? Well, let's ask the jurors in our virtual courtroom to weigh in on the judge's ruling. Fani Wills stays on the case against Donald Trump, but is forced to lose Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade over the scrutiny over their romantic relationship. Well, do our jurors agree? And do they think race or gender played a role? We've got 4 jurors here, everyday Americans, meeting tonight for the first time to share their opinions with each other and, of course, with you. Now, this is not a court of law. Our jurors are not rendering a verdict, but they will tell us what they think of today's ruling and give us some insight and a window into the court of public opinion. I'm glad that you're all here today. Thank you so much. Let me begin because the judge did say to Fani Wills that she could stay on the case or not disqualified, but that came at a cost, the removal of Nathan Wade. By a show of hands, which of you agreed with the decision for her not to be disqualified? All of you. So let's unpack that a little bit more here as to why. When you think about the reasoning why this judge said so, they said they did not meet the bar of proving that there was going to be a prejudice against the defendants. What was the most important aspect to you evaluating it? Juror 4, you're nodding your head.
Well, when we look at this case, who's really on trial at the end of the day? And if we're going to establish ethical standards need to be applied not only to Fani Wills, but to everyone that has a position of political power, whether that be formal or informal.
Interesting. You're nodding along.
Yeah, because, well, when I look at it and what's been happening, it wasn't even really about, because it also has been, there was a, what's the word?
Conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest, when it was only putting her life on display. So never once did they make the case that it was a conflict of interest. And like she told, I'm not on trial. They are. Don't forget about it. And then I hear some people say, well, maybe if she would have just in the beginning said, yeah, we got caught with our hand in the cookie jar. Okay. They wouldn't have left it there. Probably because she's a black woman, that they wouldn't have left it there. And because Trump and the kind of people that he associate with, they wasn't going to leave it there because their whole idea is to try to have the case dismissed.
So do you guys think that her race and her gender played a role in how people perceived her professionalism?
Absolutely.
Yeah. How?
I think even when she went to defend herself, I think they tried to paint the narrative of the angry black woman, and she's a DA of, I believe, the biggest county in Georgia. So how they painted her narrative, I think it was hard for her to give her truth under oath without it already being a shadow of her race on her.
That's interesting. So one of the things that the judge spoke about was that he perceived her as unprofessional on the stand when she was speaking to the attorney who was leading the disqualification. Did you see her behavior, her demeanor as unprofessional or passionate?
And I think it depends on who's calling what unprofessional, because we've seen many cases of things that don't necessarily meet our bar. And again, it just indicates that there's a changing standard, but who is the one to truly define it? And there's subjectivity there.
What do you think?
It felt more like passion to me. It felt like frustration, and that she was just trying to display how disheartened she was that this was going to be happening to her, and how much she wanted to show, this is not really what we're supposed to be talking about. This is not the issue at hand.
There was a moment that she spoke at a church in Georgia, and there was a lot of conversations around what she said. She was talking to a congregation. There were prepared remarks. That was an issue that it seemed to be exercise forethought. Let me let you all hear what she had to say, and then I'll ask you what you thought of that moment. Listen.
I'll tell you, I hired one white man, brilliant, my friend, and a great lawyer. And I hired one black man, another superstar, a great friend, and a great lawyer. Oh Lord, they gonna be mad when I call them out on this nonsense. First thing they say, oh, she gonna play the race card now. But no, God.
The race race card very much played into the statements by at least one of the attorneys interpreting what she had to say about that moment. How did you perceive her statements? They're made before the trial. They were public. How did you perceive that moment?
Well, I think she was just expressing how she felt and what was happening with her.
I think she was trying to get ahead of it.
Yeah,
I think she was trying to get ahead of it. I think she knew that it was coming. The undertones were already there before this trial. As soon as it was announced what she was going to do, the racial undertones were there, the threats were there. So once this came up, I think she tried to get ahead of it because she knew it was coming.
And it's easy for them to say, oh, she's playing the race card when they've had colleagues that look like them and have done this for years. So they do not know her true experience. So why can't we give her the benefit of the doubt for sharing from her perspective?
The benefit of the doubt was not part of the calculus that you heard, at least at this particular hearing. But what you did hear a lot of was about the nature of the relationship between herself and Nathan Wade, particularly as related to cash, the element of cash, reimbursements, going Dutch, or just keeping cash on hand. A lot was made of that. I wonder how each of you saw that moment. Jer, what?
Ultimately, she tried to demonstrate that, she was making her own case, that it's about the financial conflict of interest, but there wasn't enough proof to demonstrate that there was a financial conflict of interest.
How do you see it?
No, I like what she said. Number one, in black people in the South did keep money. And your parents would, if you went out with a gentleman, they would tell you keep money if something happened that you can get home on your own. And then I love how she said a man is not a plan. You know what I mean? So she was standing up for her right. They for companionship. And so I'm thinking if she's making all this money and he's making good money, why does she have to use his money? Why couldn't, like she said, share the money?
Let me get a show of hands from each of you, because part of the conversation is that the jury pool that will eventually hear this case, when it gets to that point in time, will be much more interested and distracted by what you've seen through this trial than the evidence at hand. By a show of hands, and I'll go down the line, actually, you can just say, would you as a juror in this case be influenced by now knowing about this particular aspect of the trial? Yes or no?
I would not.
No.
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 And that's interesting. I think many people are wondering if that would in fact be the case. The fact that she's an elected official, does that have an impact on how you view her?
I think for anyone that is in leadership, there needs to be some sort of wisdom. So are there lessons to be learned? Absolutely. But to the detriment of a career? Absolutely not.
And last question for you all. There were statements made about whether they were truthful on the stand or that they were not credible in some aspects before the judge. Does the statements made by the prosecutors in this case impact the way you would see how they present evidence in a trial? Yes or no?
No.
No.
According to the media, it has today, but
according to the media, yes, but
according to the media, no, because at the end of the day, when we talk about truthfulness, it's interesting when we look at all the parties that are at play. And so is there one that's better than the other?
I don't think it would be a fair comparison, because for this, it was personal to her. So I don't think it would be fair to compare what she would do to continue to do in the courtroom, because this was specific to her with her personal life. This went beyond her role in the courtroom. So for me, as Juror 4 said, for me it would be a no, but I can see the public opinion being a little different.
I also agree. It's two separate cases.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
It's important that we separate the two as they are distinct and have two different important roles to play.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. To hear your insight was really invaluable to me, and I think very illuminating for so many people. A special thanks to our grand jury, or our jury tonight. I called you grand because you are. If you'd like to be a juror on the next Court of Public Opinion, get in touch with us by filling out the form you can access by scanning that QR code you see on your screen, or email lauracoatesjury@cnn.com. Now, despite all of the